It's out there in the literature. I can refer to it, I can read it.
So how many groups are worldwide, how many people do you think are active in this research and this area of neuroscience? Is it, I guess how many were in Basel? I guess that's just a representative sample of, not every from your lab would have gone there, but you've had some representation.
No, exactly. I mean, I don't know. It's probably, I don't know. If you want to pick out labs that you would say are, really at the forefront of MND, let's say there's at least 100 around the world. And then there's many of the labs that will do that plus, or it'll do a bit of MND and lots of other things. And so if you then scale it out to the broader kind of, it's way more than that.
Yeah.
But in terms of labs that would regard themselves probably as motor neuron specialists, I would probably say at least 100.
It's good to know that, because I'm not sure how often that translates back to the sufferers. How would you tell? I'm thinking of people we know, people we're going to meet very soon, people we're going to meet. Certainly one of the Welsh guys, a young coach, we're going to meet him next year on the way to Cardiff on the 1st of March. So is that sort of awareness? I'm not sure if MND Scotland or the Welsh MND Association does the same sort of, actually, do you realise we're now funding this amount of, and there's thousands of people now researching and trying to help us, which is just, I think, a powerful message to give, of hope.
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And I know you mentioned earlier there's even across in Australia work and research going on. Is it a particular concentration of MND, people living MND in particular parts of the world, or is it, like MS, there seems to be a Northern Hemisphere thing going on?
MS Orkney is the world hotspot.
Yeah, so...
It's not quite the same with MND. It's really difficult, actually. When you go to countries with less well-developed health systems, the numbers and the diagnoses and things is never going to be as accurate as a more advanced Western healthcare system. So it's very difficult to get accurate numbers, actually, comparison numbers. Certainly it's not the case that it's specifically a disease of Western Europe or of Australasia, but people from all around the world.
As you said, it doesn't discriminate either what you do, who you are, or where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in fact, one of the world's best MND researchers, Justin Yerbury, actually had MND and died from it. Didn't know, there was a family history, but he didn't know he was going to get it, and ran a research lab. Even when he was in his wheelchair and was doing just things with eye movement, he was still running his lab in Australia. So even the research is not like, no one's safe. It's a horrible way of putting it, but there's not some kind of selective targeting of it. So even the researchers have succumbed to it. Yeah, cruel.
How does it all pull together? I think in the broadest terms of you're all locked on lots of different things in different areas, and there's a global push for it. And I think it's in other sort of large scale sort of these like cancer oncology type research. I think of Rob Doubledy's, and that's his field of speciality. How do you pull it all together? So actually, we've got a wide playing field here. Where do we all try and narrow in on? Is it by research team, or is there any sort of coordination, or is it by the funders? Do the funders say, here's what we think to target, or do they leave it to you to target?
The functional unit is a research lab in general. So, what goes on in my lab will be largely under my management and my guidance, and that you've met a bunch of people there. They all have their own ideas, many better than anything I'd come up with. My job is to try and encourage, cajole, but also give some kind of direction to that and keep us kind of focused where we're at. So that's the smallest functional unit is there in each of the labs. But then my lab has extensive network collaboration with other labs that have, let's say, mutually beneficial skills that we don't have. And so then you kind of broaden it out. Well, what do we do together? Where do we then put our efforts and energies there? And then you get to, well, for example, okay, I want to work with a lab in Trento, and we want to do a project together. We've got a cool idea. Right, we've now got to get someone to do it and money to do it. So then it's got to go to you've got to convince the funders that it's worth supporting. So the funders will then pick, because there'll be maybe 100 of us all around the world with these ideas, and they can afford to fund 2. So we'll all put our grant application in saying what our idea is, and they'll pick the 2 they like best and they'll fund those. So at many layers there's kind of go, no-go type decisions, but ultimately, normally what a lab decides to do will be navigate that environment with connections and collaborations with funding bodies. And then that, you hope that the kind of naturally there's some oversight of all the activity that comes from all those different networks and connections that's going on. So it's quite rare that people actually compete in terms of do the same thing. People have their own niches, their own areas they specialise in, and they tend to really use their skills and their expertise in that area, and then they'll partner with other people to kind of be even greater than that and have even bigger ideas and plans. So that tends to be, you do have unique, so what I can do in my lab, no one else in the world can fully replicate that. But likewise, I couldn't copy what someone's doing in any other lab around the world. So it's very unique.
But can each individual unit leverage off, you learnt this because you tried A, B and C, we're going to do something similar about X, Y and Z, so different circumstances. But
so
how do you get that collective learning and that journey you're on
the literature?
Yeah.
So people talk about this abstract idea kind of in the outside world, but essentially the way that we tell the world what we've found is we publish it in a peer-reviewed journal paper, and the peer review process is important because it means that experts who are not us, independent of it, have to check whether they agree with what we've said. Are we being honest? Are we being fair? Is it appropriate? Are we being over sensational? All these kind of things. So when I've got something I think is important, I try and publish it. And when it's published, it's then out there for anyone in the world to see. And one of my jobs as a lab head is to watch what else is being published, and we use that to then guide our work. And likewise, what we publish will guide other people's work. So this diffusion of the literature is what guides the whole field. And that's where essentially the gold standard of reporting takes place. Now, it doesn't mean everything that's published is right. That's an important point to note, but ultimately that's what we use. It's peer reviewed, it's been checked, it's out there in the literature, I can refer to it, I can read it, I can analyse what I think they've done, I can contact them if I've got questions, and then we'll try and all build from there. So, for example, the drug, terazosin, we published a paper 2022, which basically said we think terazosin could work for MND, and here's our evidence. And what's happened is there's now several other labs that are now working on terazosin because they read our paper and they thought, well, that's cool, that looks like it's got promise, we've got a different model or a different system, or we think if we combine terazosin with our drug it'll be even better, whatever. And so you stimulate then others to do it. Likewise, if someone says, well, we tried this and it didn't work, then we might go, okay, well, we'll drop that.
That's equal learning, because you won't try that path again, or you go into...
This is the slight problem with the system. It's very difficult to publish negative findings.
It's still a learning, isn't it?
It's learning, but the journals are the arbiters of what they publish. They don't like to publish negative findings. So unfortunately, this is a problem. There is probably quite a few experiments that labs have done that we know didn't work, but they've not been published.
Why not?
Because it's so difficult to publish that kind of work. It's very difficult.
And then I'm thinking, why do the journals not want to do that? Is it?
They're not as
there's a learning
exciting.
edge.
Yeah, but they're not as exciting. The journals trade on clicks.
Okay.
Right? So how many times a paper is downloaded and then cited will tell you how good a journal is.
So there's got to be social media at an academic level.
Exactly. We were there a lot earlier than social media. But there's a problem. A journal doesn't like a paper that will be read by just a few folk in the field that will go, but we won't do that. They want the paper that says, whoa, we've cured cancer. Because everyone reads, everyone gets excited about it, everyone quotes it, and the journal benefits. So there's this implicit bias in the system. Now, that's getting better. It's getting better because things like social media, contacts, if I know there's 3 other labs that are interested in the same area as us, I can email them and say, look, we're thinking of trying this. Have you tried it? And sometimes they won't tell you, but more often than not they'll say, oh yeah, we tried that 5 years ago, it's rubbish. Now, that might not be enough to put us off, but it might make us think twice.
It's framed in a certain way. It's informed your decision.
Yeah, exactly.
How did it not go right?
Yeah. But again, this comes back to so much, but you can see why I was saying earlier was the importance of getting good people. Because it's the people that do the science. And I need people in the lab who will think about something and will say, actually, I don't think we should do that. Or I've spoken to someone, we should do that. And that's how you make decisions. So there's an awful lot of this team narrative, and getting the brightest and best into the MND research field is what will make the biggest breakthroughs. So that's why, a big part of it is to
how do you pitch neuroscience at the first year medical students? Where do you start to look for them, or how do you start to attract them?
To be honest, you don't try and actively do anything other than just tell them about what's out there and let them find their way, but give them as much information as you can. And those that then show an inkling of interest, that's when you kind of, right, let's see what we can do to help you. And that's when you'll try and find opportunities and encourage, mentor them. It's the connectivity of the nerve that goes from your spinal cord to your muscle. That's what breaks down. And when that breaks down, it doesn't matter what your brain does, the muscle no longer gets a signal to move. So this connection, how the nerve speaks to muscle, is really at the heart of what happens in MND. And this is how we stain them and look at them. So over to you, Hannah.
So I'm trying to go after this one at a time. But so we've got here, you can see both channels at the moment. If I open it up. So in the green you've got the nerve coming in, and then in the red you'll be able to see the acetylcholine receptors on the muscle side, so where the muscle is. So I'll just touch on there. And then if you want to have a wee move around, you can have a look around. But yeah, that's all.
What I might just do is I'll just turn this light off. You'll see it better like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the red is showing.
And the red is the areas on the muscle where the nerve fibers are meeting, so the neuromuscular junctions that we focus a lot on. So the sort of the background you can see is the muscle fibers. So this is all on the muscle fiber.
So just to put it into context, that's about 1/10 the width of a hair on your head.
Jesus.
That's the actual size of what you're looking at. Try and, find opportunities and encourage, mentor them.
There's like, as Hannah was speaking before, and I said to her, why didn't you say so? When I was at school, I got interested in the lab and I really liked this and thought, oh, that's interesting. Then I went to university and then suddenly something just stuck. And I just thought, and then motor neurons, I want to get into them, I want to understand them. And she said, I will spend the rest of my life doing this because there's just so much to learn and it's so exciting. It's like, because I was really interested, why did you thought that's why? But it came early on.
Absolutely.
By just seeing something and getting stimulated in an interest, it's what you said earlier.
Yeah, and again, it's not often the seeds planted many years earlier as well.
Yeah.
It's something they heard when they were at school, or they had a talk from an MND patient and they remember it. And then they're in a lecture and then, oh, hang on, I remember that. I was like, oh, we had that. I found that really emotional. And then they start making the link to saying, oh, I'm going to go and work on it. And then they'll send someone like me an email and say, oh, I see your lab works on motor neuron disease. Could I come and work with you? Or could I get a project in your lab? Or could I? And that's when you then try and kind of foster and encourage them. And it's really a case of trying to kind of, when someone's got the excitement and the bug, you try and encourage them in any way you can. The big problem, as always, is money. There's no point denying it. Mm-hmm. Everyone in that lab is on a maximum, say, 3-year contract, often on a 1 or 2 year contract. So my job is to keep repeatedly trying to find the money to keep them. And for them, especially as they get a bit older, well, they've got a mortgage or they've got a family, and I can't keep going on 1 year contracts. So the real goal beyond that is then to create an environment in universities where they want to invest in MND research. And that they will then employ people like me at the kind of academic level who work on MND. And that is what has changed massively in recent years. There are many more academics, so kind of the lead PIs, we call them principal investigators, that do MND research than there ever was. And so there's more people like me who are now in place to try and enthuse and recruit and mentor the next generation. So it'll take time, but as that starts to snowball, you start building and building that critical mass of people. And that's what you've got to hope will make the big difference in 5, 10, 15 years.
It was the question I was going to ask. What impact does the foundation have with you guys?
Huge. You would not have seen half of that today if they hadn't funded us. Simple.
So the people who donate to the challenges that we're all doing, their money is funded at least half of that research that's led to breakthrough potential drugs,
Absolutely.
repurposing the existing drugs and finding stuff.
Yeah. I don't get any money to do our work from anywhere other than funders. The university doesn't pay for it. There is no money. So my job is to go out there and raise the money by applying to people like Doddie Foundation and say, look, I've got this idea. This is the research we want to do. Will you fund it? Will you support it? And the only way I can then pay the salaries of the people you've met is because I've been funded to do it. I don't have pots of money elsewhere. That doesn't exist for research. So absolutely, you literally would not have seen half the things you saw today without funding from Doddie.
And that research is obviously accelerated.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many folds in the past 2 years since the foundation's existed.
Yeah. Well, there would not be patients right now receiving terrozosin. That simply wouldn't be happening. It would not have ever happened if it wasn't for the funding. So, it may not work. But if it works, it's only happened, and every patient around the world that goes on to the treatment will only be on that treatment because you funded it.
So that makes everything that we do all worthwhile,
Absolutely.
because we're making a difference for you to make that
We
difference for other
simply
people.
could not do it without you. I'm not. This is not, me sugarcoat. That is the reality. If we did not get funding to do this work, this research would not happen.
And I think that's the important awareness as well that we can take out there. This is not just us raising money for the Doddie Foundation. We're raising money for you guys, for that research. The foundation don't keep the money. They
No,
use
exactly.
that.
No,
They
it's
use that. They find the projects. They find the people who need that money,
Absolutely.
and that money goes to finding a cure for MND.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, you can see this is not a kind of wasteful environment. This is not lavish in terms of, money is not blown on fancy offices, and it's every penny we get goes into the actual research. So when I get a grant from the Doddie Foundation, it tells me what I can spend it on, and it all goes on the research. So it's not paying for things that people have seen. Oh, I know when I give to charity, the money just goes to people. That's not the case. Everything you've seen in that lab is paid for. Every penny that we get coming in from the grant, from the Doddie Foundation, will go to pay the people, salaries for the people on it, and the experimental cost of what you see.
And they look like they're worth a weight in gold.
They are. As I said to you earlier, I won't say it in front of them because then they get big-headed. But they are, honestly, I mean, you've met them, right?
Don't worry.
They are
Well, they are
incredibly
definitely-
bright people.
They are definitely worth a weight in gold.
They really are. They're incredibly bright. And you've seen it. Taiwanese, American, French, Belgian. They have travelled around the world to come here to work on that. This isn't just, it happens to be next door, I'll take that job.
Yeah.
These are people that will...
They
They could choose. They could choose to be anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, they wouldn't be here doing that unless you funded them. It's that straightforward. And so you can imagine if the money that comes into the Doddie Foundation is doubled, and they pass that on to the research labs, we can double that.
That just makes it all worthwhile for us.
Right? And of course, there's no promises, but you can see the effort is there, and you can see what we're trying to do, and that's what you want to do more of. And it's only going to happen if, I wish there was, Elon Musk decided he was going to fund every research lab with a couple of million quid, we'd all be fine, right? But that ain't the reality. That does not happen. It needs people like yourselves who are doing, incredible feats of endurance and fundraising and putting your time and your emotional energy and relationships and all these things that come with all the stuff you do on the line. If you weren't doing it, there is no research.
So we've had 11 million out of the foundation over the past 2 years. So what do we need now?
Yeah, just need to double it.
Yeah,
11 million is a huge sum.
huge amount.
Yeah, really, that's a huge sum. To have gone from a standing start not many years ago to that level of funding is remarkable. But let me just remind you as well, it's the awareness. Right? The amount of people, I'll walk down the village street, the amount of people with Doddie, neckerchiefs, hoodies, scarves, people know it. They know him. They know the disease. They know they want. People will say to me, "I'll go and get my sandwiches." They know we work and they know we've done stuff with Doddie. Oh, hey, get on with that Doddie stuff. It's huge. So there's the money, which don't get me wrong. Without the money, there's none of what you've seen. But the awareness and getting that message out there, and then the more people, then it might be the little girl that does the lemonade stall in the summer and makes 20 quid, but they make 20 quid and they think, I'm going to give that to MND research. Oh, wow. So that's fine. So hopefully you can see why we're so grateful you've come to see us, because it's so inspirational for us that we see people like yourselves. Hopefully you now know where the money goes.
100%.
You've seen what we do. And it's people, and we do our best, and I'm sure we'll knock things up, but we try our best and we keep going, and hopefully, if people like the teams that are brought here today carry on, we'll smash the disease, and that's all we can hope for. The sooner the better.
Teamwork.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, always, isn't it?
And we're all part of the same team.
Exactly, yeah.
Yourself, the experts through there, everybody's all
Yeah,
part of the
absolutely.
same team. So
Yeah.
thank you very much again.
So
Yeah, thanks.
it's a tiny thing, and I know they don't fit on bikes, but at least there's something just to remember us by when you race. This is the anatomy brand. There's the elephant skeletons that you've seen. So one for each of you, just to
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
while you're on your I know they might not go on a bike, but at least while you're on your travels,
But
you
they
might.
can sit in the van and contain something that might just be a little bit refreshing.
Thank you.
That's really
They're great for PIMS in the summer, I've been told. I've no first-hand
for G&T and mine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also have a little thing for you if you're
Oh.
if you would want to tell everybody.
Oh.
That's a little window sticker that we have done for our team.
Fantastic. Where am I best to put that?
I don't know. I mean, I have more if you want more to stick around
Do
university.
you have a couple?
Yeah.
Because actually we could get a couple up in the research building, that's really good, and I can put some around here as well.
Here's 500 deal
Here's-
maker there.